So I think, like we talked about earlier, Jim, I think today we're going to talk about one of the five areas in our framework, our flywheel circle of self. And as you may recall from previous discussions, we always start out in the middle of the circle in the center with the self, the ego, and everything, the self hyphenated series of words: self-worth, self-awareness, self-assessment. And today we're going to move forward in summarizing our framework by picking up the topic of health. So I think most of what we'll be talking about today is how we feel about health, mental and physical health, emotional health, and what are some of the experiences we've had with that to let people kind of get a better understanding of our perspective on that, on the context of that, and how we might be able to help someone who's in any way challenged or maybe just curious about performing at a higher level, if you will, in the areas of mental and physical health. Is that consistent with what you want to talk about?
Absolutely. And I always appreciate you starting off with the self, because it starts, everything starts with ourself. And as you were describing that, the couple selves that's the other thing I like about starting with the self. It's very individual. So there's many different selves, right? Like I said, self-worth, self-evaluation, self-identity. But when you get into health, it's directly related to our self-identity, our self-confidence, and our self-respect for ourselves. So,
yeah, it's, and I guess they're both could be considered self-care. You know,
yes,
are you the proverbial you, the independent you? Are you taking care of yourself? Is that important to you? Are you aware of all the available self-care health methods that have emerged, even in a non-traditional medical arena of holistic? I mean, there's so much innovation going on in the healthcare space right now, both mental and physical, that it's pretty difficult to keep up. And as you know, I've got one of my daughters is a health coach. She doesn't like that term. I think she prefers gut health coach. But so I've been around a young lady who's been researching this stuff for 20 years. And she's really good. So we have this free resource over there if we ever have any questions, and my kids were all athletes, and you and I are both athletes. I'm not sure if your kids were athletes, but that being an athlete, particularly at the level that you were, the highest level in the rugby space, you got all the concussion stuff going on. You got, a whole different diet. You got all different workout habits that you're probably not doing a whole lot of anymore because you've been retired for some time. So maybe you can share some of that with the audience.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. But I also appreciate something you said earlier before we started the recording, and that was the health that people, I think, naturally value somebody that's healthy, right? So if somebody's giving you advice, they're going to look at your physical health, they're going to look at your mental health, or they'll see and hear your mental health, and how that's it's part of leadership. But also it makes you more believable. Explain to that, and then I'll get into what my thoughts about.
But I think that there's a couple things that come to mind. I mean, I'm 62 years old, so I'm not professing, nor are you, I don't imagine, to be a health coach or, a physical therapist, or, I'm just a guy who's always been conscious of my health. And because I played sports at a pretty high level my whole life, I was always interested in performing at the highest level I could. And maybe not early in my career, but soon thereafter, the sports psychologist thing was becoming a big deal. And now everyone's got one. It's like, wow, there's a whole other mental game to this physical game that I'm playing that arguably is more important than the physical game. You got to be in this thing mentally as well. So I think it's a fascinating topic. I've always been conscious of it. I've always eaten well. I'm pretty much all organic food guy. I don't eat any processed foods. I know what to do. And then the other thing, I have a frame of references, my friends that are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. I hate to say this, but it seems like most of them don't attend to their health very well. They kind of are occasionally trying to diet or occasionally trying to
Yeah,
stop drinking as
they're not
much.
their best self.
No,
And
they're
and
not. And
and
they're
that's what this
doing
is.
they're doing really well financially and professionally,
Mhm.
for the most part, but they're getting fat and they're getting prescription drugs and medication. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to tell anybody what to do, but I'm like, I can tell you right now that relative to everyone else I know that's 62, I'm taking pretty good care of myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get into it. Yeah. I think you said there's two parts of health. That's why we have, we have health, and then we have our mental health and our physical health. But just our physical health, it's such an important part of what you put in your mouth every morning or every day. So
Hmm.
that changes, as time goes on. You're following different diets or different fads. At the moment, I'm a big believer in the more the carnivore diet,
Yep.
where you see the benefits of eating meat, the benefits of eating whole butter, organic foods, and things like that. But
Hmm.
I can't speak uh, highly enough about the importance of getting good proteins and natural proteins, and and
Yeah. There's,
hydration and all the things that come with that. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as the diet side of it, and on the nutrition side. Yeah, as far as exercise, I think you got to listen to your body. These guys that are still hitting the gym and 5 days a week and probably not even getting results. It's about managing injury, so you don't want to overtrain.
yep.
So
Yep.
I think I like to mix it up. I'll do some weightlifting. I have a home gym, so that's where I work out.
Yep.
But then I'll
Yep.
mix that up with running. I have some great hills where I live, so I'll run the hills 2 or 3 times a week,
Yep.
and just listen to your body, and not lift to exercise to impress anybody, but do it for your the health benefits as much as it is the physical benefits.
Yeah.
Which
Well, I was going to ask you, I mean, I think I know the answer to the question, but if you're physically fit,
Mhm.
are you not much more able to perform better at work?
Oh, there's no question. In fact, if you look at the output, if you've ate well, you've hydrated, and you've exercised, I'm a big believer in the 80-20 rule, right? But your output is so much better. Uh, it sounds like, okay, hey, I'm going to take away time from my work or a project, but you actually get that back if you go get those areas right in your life. Your output, your productivity is greater.
Hmm.
So
I
and
think
that's
so.
proven. So I know some think, well, I don't have time to work out. Well, guess what? If you work out, then your output when you do sit down and get some and work will be equal and better. But it also applies to other parts of your life. Everything. You feel better about everything. You feel better about your profession.
Yep.
It affects your financial relationship with other people is better,
Yep.
and your
Yep.
outlook on the worldview. So they're all connected.
It's interesting to me, and I think this is generational. So, I grew up in, we leaned on pretty much traditional medicine, the whole 100%. We did have our own garden, and my mother was pretty health conscious. We brought vitamin C into the house way before anybody else did, I would imagine. So, and we were all athletes, so we exercised, but we trusted the doctors and we trusted the traditional medical community. And what's we've seen over our lifetime now, in particularly in our young adult children, is they don't trust the doctors anymore. They're not brainwashed about prescription medications. They're not, I people that are my age, they talk to me about their various maladies, and most of it's like cholesterol, blood pressure, and maybe there's some skeletal stuff from sports injuries or whatever, because as we were saying earlier, you don't get to 60 if you played sports your whole life and not have a few rickets. But that's a fascinating world of, there's a whole body right now of people, and it's getting bigger by the day, that will tell you, I'm not going to the doctor at all, right? I'm going to take care of myself, and I'm going to avoid disease. And I know that I can do that because there's enough documentary evidence right now to have proven that it's possible. People curing stage 4 cancer by juicing. I mean, these things are happening. And I just think that's really, really interesting.
Well, I think anybody that's been following medicine for the last 30 years realize that they've become more marketing companies than they have um, drug companies to treat. So it's not that they don't do some great things, and that modern medicine, we benefit from it every day, but they, like a lot of corporations, are much more interested in the money than they are helping people, and
Yeah. Well,
they're
dude,
marketing companies, right?
yeah.
And
And I know the fact that I know the words to the Ozempic commercial is
yeah,
frightening.
yeah,
It's frightening.
it is. Yeah,
It's and you and I have talked about this before. You can't watch anything online or on TV that has commercials where the vast majority of those commercials are anything other than prescription medications.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's probably a whole
yeah,
podcast episode onto itself. But
yeah. But
yeah,
Mark, you also, you've mentioned it, and it's true. And a lot of people ask, because I did play rugby in 20 straight seasons, and towards the end at the highest level there was at the time. There's no question that I've had some injuries, and I'm still nursing some injuries. But I have to say, if I look around, at least guys my age, there's many guys that didn't play any sports at all after maybe high school
mhm.
that are just as beat up, if not more than I am. So I
Yeah.
don't contribute all my injuries and all my problems. If anything, I think it's probably kept me healthier because of that, because I had to train every single week to prepare for the match on Saturday.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I really just continued to train as if I was still playing. I never stopped training.
And I
Uh,
think that's a great point. I think you're right. I think I would say broad brush, most people don't take very good care of themselves, and there's a lot of opportunity to perform at higher levels mentally as well as physically that most people don't avail themselves of. But I think you're right. I think the fact that you're still in one piece after that kind of a career means you were taking care of yourself the whole time, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's overlooked, forgot. Now on the mental side, that exercise is very good for mental. You mentioned medications. The side effects of medications are often outweigh the benefits of the medication.
Yep.
But physical exercise, good food, all those things, that's medicine in itself. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I've experimented with some different medications and realized, hey, this is not helping me. If anything, it's probably hurting me. And then did my best to get off those medications. So
Yeah, I think that brings to mind one kind of condition. I'm not suggesting, nor am I qualified to suggest that medications are bad for
mhm,
everyone. But I think that the way we use them is here's a pill, it'll get rid of that symptom. Just keep taking it for the rest of your life. When I think we should say, here's a protocol of prescription medicines, AKA, this will get your blood pressure down, this will get your cholesterol down, and you won't die in the next 6 months. So start doing that. But our long-term plan is to remove those drugs from your diet by infusing your diet with different lifestyle choices, better foods, better things to drink, the different level of activity. So if that's the intention, I'm all for medication, but I don't believe for 1 second that the vast majority of doctors are doing that. I think the
yeah,
vast majority of doctors are lifelong recurring revenue.
yeah, I agree. But yeah, but to go into the mental health side of that, in fact, that's how we met, right? That's something quite a bit about. And I was struggling with some depression and some things, and it took some time to work through that. It could have been related to I did some SPECT scans of my brain for memory and things like that. But yeah, they say there could have been some damage, through the concussions of football and rugby, and then even fights and car accidents and things like that. So
Mhm.
that's as time goes on, those things become um, issues more than maybe in your younger life, right? That's part of how the human brain
Yeah,
ages.
yeah,
And
no, I reflect back on that first meeting of ours fondly, quite frequently, but yeah, I think everybody is fucked up in some capacity.
yeah,
It's
yep,
I've
well
got
said.
yeah. I mean, it's
we, we all are. I mean,
let's be
it's part of
frank.
being human, right?
Well,
Yeah,
I'm not talking from some pedestal down to everybody. I'm right up there with you, man. I
yeah, That's why
I had
self-awareness is we start off with self-awareness, right?
you gotta. That's where this whole discussion begins. It's like, well, am I really aware of how well I'm taking care of myself? Am I missing some opportunities to take better care of myself? And if the answer to that is most likely,
Yeah.
then let's begin the journey. And the journey happens with somebody that can kind of walk you through and act as your agent in this journey to higher performance. And
Mhm.
it's like, it doesn't matter how old you are.
Yeah.
If you could get yourself a better life, why wouldn't you? Well,
Yeah.
that's an interesting conversation, not to be
Yeah.
had
Interesting
now,
that you
but
mentioned the word agent too, because yeah, I think that to some degree when I reached out to you and you became my agent.
I did.
And even though, there was obviously a product or a service that was involved, you acted as my agent, and it was very helpful. Like, hey, well, let's try this. Let's see this, and so that's a great example of that. Um,
Yeah.
Also, environment. I think we underestimate our environment, and that if you're in the same environment, then that's going to continue to produce the same thoughts.
Yeah.
So by changing your environment, that could be your household, that could be your place where you're living, anything just to mix that up, has a lot to do with our mental health and the
Yeah. You're
repetitive.
100%. I think that, you've said it before. I've heard it before elsewhere, but I think we're the product of the 5 people that we spend the most time with.
Yeah.
But we also have talked a great deal about the YouTube rabbit hole, TV, online
Oh yeah. Glad
videos,
you mentioned that.
and the
Yeah.
news. And it's like, and I'll speak for myself, if I'm allowing myself to consume, shitty TV, violent TV,
Yeah.
misinformation, whatever you want to call it, then that's gonna fuck me up, And
Well, that's yeah,
I've
man.
got
I'm
to
glad you're talking about this. YouTube, just the algorithms of YouTube are very addicting because they're very good at feeding you the same information. Every time you hit that button, it knows what's to send you next. So I'm glad you mentioned this. My brother and I were talking about this was during Thanksgiving, and I just came out and said, that's my one weakness right now,
Yeah.
is that you start listening to one YouTube channel and it's different than regular TV, right? Because it's interactive.
Oh
So
yeah, especially those shorts where one just leads
those are
to
the
another.
those are the worst. In fact, right now I made a promise. I think I'm on day 2 now, not to watch another short, because if I
Yeah.
hit one short video, then it turns into 2 and then 3, and then if I know it, 30, 40
Oh,
minutes is gone.
I was
Eh,
feeling anxious the other day. I don't think it was the time I was telling you I was feeling anxious. And I thought to myself, and I've gotten pretty good at this self-awareness thing. I went, okay, I don't like that feeling. Why is that happening? And it's one of like 3 or 4 things, right? You need to go for a walk, right? You need to unplug from some of the nonsense that's streaming through your brain. You're not being productive enough, so go mow the lawn or clean up the house or make a few phone calls, whatever. Productivity eliminates anxiety. And it's where am I? Am I in a home that's got bright shiny sunshine coming in? Do I have clean air in here? Is the music like pleasant? You can manipulate your environment like really easily, really quickly. And I've turned my anxiety off within minutes just by becoming immediately self-aware and then understanding what the tools are where I can flip those switches without spending money and a whole lot of time.
but yeah, in terms of the health, and then it affects every part of our other parts of our life. So I think that's about all there is to say about health. We every time we have one of these conversations, we always say, "Oh, this is the most important area of our lives," and then that falls into the other area. So
Yeah,
um,
they're all the other areas which we'll subsequently talk about in future episodes. We're going to do 5 episodes on one of these each to conclude all 5, and then at the end of the series, I think we'll talk about what we've kind of dabbled in a little bit, the value of agency, the value of having an objective third party with a particular level of expertise to kind of guide you on the journey to higher performance. And I think that I think we all have a higher gear, Jim. I don't think you could ever possibly be performing at the highest possible level you could. But I also think, myself included, we're missing opportunities. And, you know, as we get older, our time becomes more limited. And I really, I look at my mother who took her own life in her late 70s, and my father who's 95 and doesn't take any prescription drugs and still drives his own car. And I'm like, everyone has an opportunity to do better in this area of physical and mental performance. It's just a question of, do you believe that the tools are accessible to you? Yes, they are. Do you know what they are? It doesn't matter. You know, we know most of them, and we can point in the direction of quite a few of them as well. You have to be ready to do this kind of work. But if you are, you know, we'd love to have you consider us as potential agents. And it certainly doesn't have to be us, but that's kind of what we're all about.
Yeah. Well said, Mark.
All right, Jim, I enjoyed this one. We'll
All
talk
right.
next week.
Until next week. Yeah.
Okay, see you.